Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending June 17th. Not quite as bad as it has been for some of us. At least it is gonna lighten up a little bit, so that's kind of cool. We definitely have some fun stuff going on as well. So let's just hop into it. We're gonna start with Darcy, because we always start with Darcy, right? And why is this not? Okay, yes, we always start with Darcy. All right, couple things. First of all, let's just go ahead and kick off the week. The moon in your sign. And no, we're not kicking off the week with the moon in your sign. Okay, totally confused. Let me start over. Hi, Darcy. How's it going? Hopefully you're enjoying some beautiful weather. Okay, we're not kicking off the week with the moon in your sign, because see, I'm trying to let my brain um do the job that it's not supposed to do. We're just going to put it that way. So, but when we do get into the middle of the week, which is about Wednesday-ish, the moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter, which is in your sign, and still in a T square with Venus and Pluto. So interestingly enough, what we're looking at here about Tuesday and Wednesday is focus is on your long-term financial goals this week. Venus's focus is on those that support you. Pluto is opposite of that and those that you support. So couple of things come up with this. Obviously, this is usually that point where the people that are supposed to support you just aren't being very supportive, if that makes sense. I do see an element of somebody owing you money that you might be having a hard time collecting on, if that makes sense. And I don't feel that this is an isolated incident either. Like, this is the first time. This kind of happens a lot. Person said, I swear it's not going to happen this time, and then it did. Obviously, you know from here on out that it's always going to happen. So in a situation like this, you really only have two choices. One is to accept it for what it is, and two is to stop loaning this person money, obviously, no matter how hard they beg for it. That is a little bit of a difficulty, but it, in a way, I feel like the situation is coming up, and the emotional undertone of the situation specifically is coming up, because this is a pattern that you seem to get yourself into. It's like you're really quick to jump up and help other people, and they're just not really all that quick to jump up and help you all the time, and that's frustrating. And when you have a big heart like you do, it really feels really crappy. So there's a couple of things that come out of that. One, a lot of that sort of behavior stems from just wanting people to like you. I think that's a being ruled by Venus thing, honestly, because I know Libras are very much like that as well. The truth of the matter is that the right people are going to love you for who you are, and the wrong people are going to love you as long as you continue to give them something. And you don't want those people loving you. I mean, it's obviously it's not the kind of love that you're looking for. And yes, it could be a lasting love, but can you really afford it? And we're not just talking financially, we're talking emotionally. Can you afford the time that you're investing in these people that you're not necessarily getting anything back from? Everything is a balance. I charge for readings because that's part of that balance. I'm providing a service, and in exchange, you are paying for it. And without that balance, symbiotic for both people, what tends to happen is that the reading isn't as good for the person, but also maybe it is too good, and then I wind up with a person that I just cannot get rid of, no matter what I do or say or what have you. And so unfortunately, that sort of plays out into a waste of time for me, specifically because a lot of times these people wind up just using me for stupid stuff. So, that's also not the kind of stuff that I really want to waste my energy on anyways. So when you look at it from a much bigger place, you're actually seeing that you could be potentially screwing yourself instead of building a relationship that is actually something that's going to work for both of you, if that makes sense. So I feel like the moon's influence on that kind of sort of takes the rose-colored glasses off and really shows you the situation for what it is. And it sucks and it hurts. But by doing that, it also provides a space for healing and for growth for you, which is really what Jupiter is all about. The good news is that as the moon moves out of your sign into Thursday and Friday, Pluto and Venus end their opposition with each other, which means that Jupiter continues to be in a square with Venus this week and continues to be in a square with Pluto, but the two aren't opposite each other. So it is now, instead of one great big challenge, it's two smaller challenges, which is a little bit easier to handle in many cases. I just want to say this is really important. I've known a lot of Tauruses, male and female, over the years. The biggest thing that gets in the way of any Taurus is their own stinking thinking every single time. If you're focused on a lack of support in your goals, if you're focused on what people should be doing, these are still your goals. This is about what you put into it. It's not about what other people put into it. So even somebody that may be saying, yes, let's form a partnership, and then they're dragging their heels on this, that's a good indication that this is not the two of you lesson. This is a Darcy lesson. And this is one of those instances where you take another step towards you being 100% completely and totally independent. And while that is difficult, and sometimes we don't want to be independent, we'd really love for somebody to financially help us out. Trust me, being independent is really the best way to go. Because when you have complete control over your finances, you don't have the worry of somebody else coming in and causing a problem. And that really can be very, very frustrating, not something that you want. So overall, is it a little chaotic? Yes, but it's chaotic in a good way for you, and only a little bit chaotic so that you can take control over your own finances, take control over your own life, take control over your relationships, really, to be able to see them as clearly as possible so you can determine the best course of action to move forward in. The last thing that I'm being shown for you this week is I know you work a lot, but I am seeing some, I don't know, it's like some time opening up. Either you got a couple of days off, or some type of something where this is an adventure where you can just disconnect from all of that craziness and all the people and just kind of have a sort of I'm trying to find the word here and I can't think of the word. It's just it's you time is what it is. To sit down and have a meeting with you and you only, and sort of disconnect from people and energies and clear your mind in a nature space, preferably. At least that's what I'm being shown, is a nature space. This is really, really important for you. I mean, I really feel like this is what brings balance into your life when things just get chaotic and it feels like your energy is spread in a million different directions. This is what you do to ground and bubble in many cases. And you can just visualize that space and do that ground and bubble every single day. In fact, you should be. If you're not, you really should go find my ground and bubble video and keep doing that again. because you just feel so much better afterwards. It's like you can take on the world, and every year, every day that we get older, it gets more and more difficult for us to feel like we can take over the world, but you still can. And you should, because you're Darcy and you're awesome. So that's what I have for you this week. Moving on to Kendra. So we do continue to have Jupiter in that T square with Pluto as well as Venus. Now, we were just talking actually earlier this week about when the hell Mars is going to stop being in that trauma space, which is not 100% affecting you. It does a little bit with the moon kind of sort of coming in and bringing that aspect into it. But the answer to that question is, I think next week, maybe even the week after. He's finally moved on to a different focus. Thank goodness. It's been such a difficulty for on a world scale, really, just so much anger coming out of everywhere. And we really need to smooth that down a little bit for sure. So we do still have that challenge there for most of the week. It does start to break up as we get towards the end of the week, but not before the moon comes in, of course, to influence the whole thing, right? Smack dab in the middle of the week. So we've got about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter. So it adds an emotional layer to this challenge. Jupiter's focus is on your long-term financial goals. Venus is focused on those that support you. Pluto is focused on those that you support. So again, we have that sort of, we're not seeing eye to eye kind of feeling going on there with that opposition between the two, which is the part that really ends towards the end of the week. We don't have those planets being in opposition with each other anymore. However, it just changes slightly for Taurus, unfortunately, because Jupiter continues to be squared with both planets. Oh my goodness. Basically, I see this as there's two things. One, in terms of your financial goals, you have your plans, your husband has his. So you don't necessarily maybe see eye to eye on those plans. Doesn't mean that you can't find a happy resolution to that, or a happy compromise to that disagreement. So it's not even an argument. I don't see it as an argument. I see it more as you just don't agree. You don't agree, and that's okay. You can agree to disagree and come up with an honorable compromise on that one. The other thing is, though, that I really feel that work is going to play into this as well, in terms of not seeing the support that you need from there, if that makes sense, because your financial goals have a lot to do with where the money is coming from, right? And so obviously this is going to be a thing as well. So I don't really see this as being a problem in your own professional business quite as much as I'm seeing this being a problem with work, period, as in your job. So I feel like there's a couple of instances where you need to communicate with somebody and it's just not happening. It's almost feels like they're ghosting you, and I don't necessarily think that they are ghosting you, but there's other things that are getting in the way of them being able to focus their time on you, if that makes sense. The other thing, so it's really important, by the way, I just got to say, it's really important not to overreact to that. The other thing that's coming up around that as well is the reason why you may be going, emotionally overreacting to that is because I feel that you also may be picking up on somebody else that might be influencing that situation. So we're talking those stupid games, okay? The games people play. And I do see this as a man, although I see it as a woman also. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, these days, I guess it is possible that it could be both, or it could be somebody, the two that are working together, or it could be maybe even showing influences of a woman who is very masculine in her energy, or vice versa. So be aware of that. I don't think there's anything that you necessarily can do about it, but don't let it get you into that freak out space. That's the whole point, is people are going to be people and they're going to do their thing. It's you freaking out that becomes an issue, and that's kind of what you want to avoid there, if that makes sense. The last thing that I'm being shown for you, I know we talked and you got a lot of traveling that is going on specifically this week. So there's just a couple of things. First of all, there's one instance at one of these airports where there may be a bit of either a communication issue or like it seems like something is a problem when it shouldn't be, if that makes sense. It really is confusing. Like, I don't understand why this is a problem because it doesn't need to be a problem, kind of thing. So again, deep breaths, as calm as possible. The calmer you are through this, the easier it is going to be for you in the long run. And I don't feel that this is a conflict. This is just more of a misunderstanding that if you get overly emotional is going to make this a situation a lot longer for you than it will be if you just remain calm through it, if that makes sense. But it's not something that's going to stop you from being able to travel to the next destination or to travel home, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you, Kendra. I'm going to move on to Jeannette. So we have, first of all, this is our last week of Gemini season. So if you're going to party or you've been partying or you plan on partying, you might as well get it all out of your system this week because it's over. It's over after this week, and we're moving into Cancer season next week, which is pretty crazy to me. We also have Mercury moving into Gemini as well. So a couple of things. We have the moon moving into Gemini as well this week. So we've got all kinds of stuff going on here. We're going to start off at the beginning of Mercury's arrival into your sign, which is about Tuesday, Wednesday, as Mercury comes in, moved into a trine with Pluto. Now, Pluto is actually sitting in a pretty big challenge right now. So it's nice that it's being helpful for you, at least in the beginning. And we're specifically looking at our long-term goals and opening up the possibility that those that are closest to us are really there to support us in that. And I kind of see that playing out in terms of ideas that are coming from some of these people, ideas of things that you can create or ideas of things that you can do specifically, especially if these are your career goals or goals that have to do with making money. As Mercury continues to move into your sign, though, and the moon comes into your sign on Friday and moves into conjunction with Mercury, Mercury does continue with a sextile with Mars. Now, Mars is finally moving out of that, let's get rid of our inner anger, trauma, bullshit. Finally, it's only been like 6 months, but he is finally moving out of that. Not quite fast enough, though, for what we're talking about here, because he's still kind of sort of focused on it. And a lot of the anger that we're releasing right now has to do with people being supportive. So I feel like, in a way, this is sort of playing out in terms of your own realizations of whether or not people are being supportive or not. You have a lot, like a huge support system, so many people there to support you. It's unreal, right? And so, most of the time, if you call a girlfriend and she just can't be supportive for you today, you call another girlfriend or another girlfriend or what have you. You've got like this vast list of people that you can go to, and that sort of is helping you to stay out of that space that we women go to where we just project overly emotionally project our frustrations that nobody is ever there for us when we're there for everybody, kind of a thing. We both know that that's not true, right? That doesn't mean that we don't overreact sometimes. Okay, it happens. Also, Mercury square with Saturn is interesting, and that continues through most of the week. and Saturn goes retrograde right at the end of the week. So Saturn's focus is on your day-to-day schedule. Now, keeping a strict schedule for a Gemini is just not feasible to even think that. Okay, I mean, Geminis need a certain amount of openness in their schedules so they can kind of just flit from one thing to another. But a schedule is definitely needed because it keeps you focused on specific things for at different times for different reasons. So for instance, if you're trying to build a business, well, you have to have ample amount of time to focus on that business, not just the creativity parts of it, but all aspects of the business, which is kind of boring. And Gemini brains don't really want to deal with that. So they get sort of drifted off to something else. This really is the challenge here, is to stay focused on some sort of a schedule, but be flexible within that schedule. If you know you need to flip back and forth between one thing and another, give yourself some space for that, but also give yourself some space to focus specifically on what you need to get done as well, if that makes sense. And then the moon moves into conjunction with the sun at the end of the week, and we have a new moon in Gemini. New moons are fantastic opportunities for new stuff, new goals, starting something new, starting a new pattern, a healthy one preferably. All kinds of different fun stuff comes up with a new moon. I love to use the moon cycle in terms of keeping track with my goals, because it gives me a physical, oh, I'm looking at the moon, and a reminder of where I should be in my goal process for this month, if that makes sense. And the sun is also in that square with Saturn, as well as being squared with Neptune as well, specifically with where the moon is sort of bringing that square influence in with Neptune. So that also has to do with relationships. So we're bringing a little bit of a relationship challenge in there, not exactly the most fun thing in the world, but this is around your career. So if you're building, first of all, if you're building a career, somebody's always going to have something to say about it. Everybody has their 2 cents to put into it. And a lot of times that 2 cents is heavily influenced by their fears of your success, and not just for themselves and how they're going to benefit or lose in that, but for you as well. You know, a lot of times people just don't want to see you get hurt or embarrassed or what have you. So look at that for what it is. And, I mean, obviously take it into consideration. Don't base your entire decision on it either. Take what they have into consideration, but also make sure that, when you make the decision, you make the decision based on all the facts that are placed in front of you as well. You don't want to let fear hold you back, or somebody else's fear hold you back, but you also don't want to allow somebody else's fears to hold you back. A lot of times, somebody will have an idea. I've seen this a million times. Okay. I've actually seen this a million times. People go on Facebook, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you guys think? Right. And then they base their whole decision based on whatever their friends say. That is the ultimate motivation killer right there, because maybe you post on a day when most of your friends are doing something and they're busy, so they don't have a voice, they don't have a vote. Only one person thinks it's a good idea, 3 people think it's a bad idea. Obviously I'm going to base my decision on that. That's not necessarily a healthy way to base that decision, right? It's not about, if I make it, will you buy it? It comes down to, what do I want to create? And what do I want to put in the world? Not what does everybody else think that I should put into the world? You understand what I'm saying here in this? Before I wind up so confused myself that I don't know where I'm going. Good news. to help counterbalance some of that is that Mercury, the moon, and the sun, those last 2 days of the week, are in a sextile with Mars and Venus. So all three planets continue to be in that sextile. Those two planets are sort of helping you out. And the beauty of the two of these planets, Mars and Venus, is it does create this beautiful balance between the heart and the head, which helps you to make that decision in a more healthier way. You're not overthinking it. You're not allowing your feelings to run wild on it or your fear. You're balancing out and using both of those aspects to make the decision of where you need to go from this point forward. So not a bad way to end Gemini season, actually, because it gives you a lot of stuff to work with, which I think is good. You definitely get bored easily, so you need a lot of stuff to work with. That's a good thing. Don't let it don't go crazy in your head with it. Don't let it, make you crazy. Just go with what feels best for you. And don't worry about what happens. Just take it one step at a time. You have to build. If you're building a business, you have to build it one step at a time. You cannot look at where you want to be, where you are now, where you want to be, and ignore the middle part, because the middle part's where all the juicy stuff is. So it's you're gonna learn a lot, trust me. One last thing that's coming up, I do see your mom coming up this week, and I don't necessarily see her coming out there as in like she's coming for a visit. I mean, that's possible, but I feel like there's going to be some focus on her this week. I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing necessarily, but it is important. So if it's something along the lines of she keeps trying to reach out to you for something and you're just, you don't want to deal with that right now because you're focused on something else, you probably do need to give this some time. Even if it's not right then and there, it's still important to give her the time that she's needing, if that makes sense. You'll find out why when you get there. I don't know what it is. So that's what I have for you, Jeannette. Moving on to Connie. I do have good news for you, which I'm happy about. And that is that this challenge, this T-square that we have been in, okay, I say we, because I've been in it too. Leo has been involved, Taurus has been involved, Aquarius has been involved, is ending. Now, part of it is ending. So it means it's not a big challenge anymore. It becomes a smaller challenge. So we're not quite out of the challenge yet, but it is a smaller challenge. The other good news is that Mars is moving out of this inner trauma place. Thank freaking God. Okay. 6 months. 6 months. Mars has been focused on let's get rid of our inner anger. And I mean, I'm tired. Honestly, I'm tired. So that's a good thing too. We're not quite out of the woods with that yet this week, but we are getting there. We're very, very close to it. I think by next week, he will actually be focused on something other than inner trauma. So that's nice. And of course, Venus moves out of the opposition with Pluto. So that helps because now we're just in a square with Jupiter, which is a little bit easier to handle. But that all happens towards the end of the week, of course, where before all that happens, the moon moving into Taurus and joining this challenge makes it just adds an emotional layer to what already was a kind of a difficult challenge. So we've got Jupiter focused on long-term career goals, always the thing, right? Venus, of course, focused on those that support you. Pluto focused on those that you support. Again, those things aren't lining up. The people that you love are not very supportive of you. This is not a new thing either. And specifically, they're not very supportive with what you need to do. So two things. One, I wouldn't be talking to family about what your possible career plans are because they're not going to be supportive. Even if they don't think it's a bad idea, they're still not going to be supportive. We already know this, right? So might as well just keep that to yourself, keep it under your hat, do what you're going to do, don't bother talking to anybody about it. Okay. Because obviously, once you feel that you're not being supported, it takes you to that emotional place, which means you can't focus on your plans, which means it screws everything up, which means your family is getting in the way of your success again, right? Well, they can only get in the way of your success if you open the damn door. Okay. So don't open the door. That's all I'm saying. Don't open that door. All right. Number one. Number two, I also want to say that this, just looking at Venus's square with Jupiter, which is going to end, but Venus is going retrograde. So basically it's coming back, unfortunately. And the opposition with Pluto is coming back too. So this whole shebang is coming back in the next few weeks. So that's unfortunate, but it is going to change just a little bit. Looking though at just Venus's square with Jupiter, we're talking about long-term financial goals, and Jupiter is all about growth and expansion. So I know when we talked this week, we talked about the possibility of taking some classes and opening up, not going in a different direction, but opening up various different avenues of what you're already doing, which is definitely helping to move towards those financial goals. But also, it's very important to look at what needs to be set up now in terms of the success of your future financial goals. So for instance, mindset. Let's talk about mindset. If you're constantly thinking you're never going to have enough money, you're never going to have enough money. So this is a way that you're fighting with it yourself without meaning to fight with yourself. And it's an exhausting fight. And we've already talked about how exhausted you are. So this is definitely, eliminating this fight is definitely going to help for sure. Also, I feel like because Leo is influenced by Mars and Venus are in a sextile with the Sun and Mercury, both in Gemini, and towards the end of the week, the moon sort of moves into this as well. And a sextile is actually a way where the planets are working together. So it's not creating a challenge, it's helping you through the challenge. First of all, you've got these two planets that are almost in conjunction with each other, and Mars and Venus are the quintessential young man and young woman. They're the balance of the heart and the head. They're coming together in a way because, like, for instance, the whole equality between men and women have never been equal. They will never be equal. Women are women and men are men. We have our strengths and weaknesses, and they have their strengths and weaknesses. And when the two come together, you get the whole picture. So Mars and Venus are very much like that. Instead of overthinking the decision, instead of getting swept away by your feelings of whether you can or cannot be successful, you mellow that out and bring those two together and make a balanced decision on what you need to do. So it really is helpful, specifically because the Sun's house is where you shine, and it is all focused on your career. So anything that you can do, or any ideas that you do have to boost money coming from that career, definitely there's a favorable energy going to that this week. Last thing that I have for you is a frog in my throat, actually. It's kind of weird. I want to say that I know that recently you spoke your truth, which is awesome. I feel like there may be another opportunity for that. Not like the last opportunity. So we're not talking like going to a highly triggered place like that. Okay. This is more of a it could even be at work or focused towards professional rather than personal, if that makes sense. And you may find yourself in a situation where you maybe don't want to speak your truth because you feel like it's going to come across as rude or something is off. you need to speak your truth. Just make sure you do it as diplomatically as possible. The easier you deliver the message, the easier it is for them to receive the message. And I'm really, really focused around specifically somebody who just does not know what they're doing, especially when it comes to their money. They're just so lost, and there's a way that you need to communicate the urgency of getting something done without throwing them into a panic, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you this week. And I'm moving on to Jenny. We still have Venus and Mars. They're almost in conjunction with each other, moving into Leo. Mars is actually not quite there yet, but I think next week will actually be moved out of that let's get rid of our inner anger and our trauma space. And thank God. I mean, 6 months, for crying out loud, he's been focused on release of inner anger. The whole world just needs a calm down period at this point, for sure. Both planets still in a T-square, which is a pretty big challenge, with Pluto and Jupiter. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter, so it adds an emotional layer to this challenge. Jupiter's focus is all on your future financial goals. Venus is focused on those that support you. Pluto is on those that you love and support. Pluto is also retrograde. Two things come out of this. First of all, the quintessential, you really would like to put money aside for certain things, but the kids need new shoes again. They cost so much money. They really do. Even when you think you've taken care of everything and everything is done, and this may not even be something that they need. It's almost like you have this extra money, you want to put it away and be responsible, but somebody really wants something or needs something, and you really just want to kind of give it to them. It's sort of it's not the worst challenge in the world to be in, but it is a hard decision. And I would actually go more with, rather than spending all of it on them, maybe set some aside to spoil them a little bit, but put a chunk of it away for what you're trying to plan for, if that makes sense. Give yourself an honorable compromise, if that makes sense. This is not going to be as big of a challenge. By the time we get to the end of the week, Venus moves out of opposition with Pluto, so we are left with a square with Jupiter. Now, this is all going to come back later because Venus is about to go retrograde in Leo, so we'll just enjoy having the break while we have it. But going from that major challenge to just a much smaller one, we're specifically looking in this one as, again, we want to expand on our financial goals. So we want to do more than what we're already doing. And Venus's sort of placement in this challenge really has a lot to do with whether you are supported in your decisions or not supported in your decisions. Now, being that this is a decision that you make and you alone make, it would seem kind of weird that anybody else would influence those decisions. But I also feel like there is a very big possibility that it's not so much somebody influencing your decision as much as it is somebody having a say in your decision. Maybe they don't agree with the direction that you're going in, if that makes sense. Maybe they don't agree with why or what you're putting money aside for. And honestly, I don't see you as somebody who goes around talking about how much money she makes to everybody. So this would be somebody that is pretty close to you, somebody that you would probably disagree with most of the time. And I just got to say that I don't even feel like you are volunteering this information. I feel like somebody is just interrogating you to get the information. So in this sense, I kind of feel like two things are coming up. One, it's nobody's business what you're doing. So you share if you want to share, but if you don't want to share, then don't share, period. It doesn't matter how much they're grilling you. You don't have to give them an answer. It's none of their business. And I'm specifically seeing like a mother type figure that would be doing something like this. So that's one thing. The second thing is that I feel like it's not this person's influence that's necessarily creating this problem, but you are kind of flip-flopping back and forth between should I, shouldn't I, which is the best course of action to take, kind of back and forth, flip-flopping. You know where you need to put that money. You know what that money needs to go towards. You know in your heart what you want to do and what you need to do. Just because it may not, quote unquote, seem like the most financially responsible thing to do does not mean that it is a bad idea. Okay. Sometimes being a money person gets in your way because, in terms of spending it on you, you're still talking yourself out of it, which I'm not surprised. You're a woman. That's what we do, right? We sacrifice everything that we want and need for others. And you know what? Sometimes that is irresponsible. Think about it that way. You got to be responsible to everybody and you. And that's what that comes down to. So that's what I have for you, Jenny. Moving on to Linda. Virgo is still focused on self this week, and Ceres continues to be an influence in that as well. 29 degrees at the end of the week. So what that looks like is Ceres is moving on to Libra next week. I don't know when the next retrograde is and when she's coming back. I don't know any of that stuff. We'll figure that out when we get there. The focus is on self this week. Now, we just talked this week. Sorta. Yeah, it was this week. It was this past weekend. So we did just talk about some stuff that's going on right now. And well, let me put it to you this way. Never in a million years did I think that you would completely and totally allow somebody else to take control of your finances lying down, if that makes sense. It sounded like you were resolved that this is what just has to happen. And I feel like this week, everything is going to change on that, if that makes sense. Not that the way things are structured is going to change. I don't necessarily see that. What I do see, though, is you taking control of what you can take control of as much as you possibly can take control of it, if that makes sense. Not giving up complete control. That's just not you, and not something that you would do until you absolutely had to, and we are not there yet, if that makes sense. So I feel like this week a lot of how you're going to do that is going to come up around you. I feel like in many cases just this situation happening sort of kicked the stuffing out of you, but as you're trucking along, you're seeing more stuffing that fell out and sort of stuffing it back in. So I mean, literally, it's like you're stepping back into who you are and going, "Hey, wait a minute, Linda don't play that way. Okay, we're not going to do it your way. We're going to do it my way because that's how we do things, right?" And this is actually very specific around your daughter. Actually, I feel like this has a lot to do with it, mainly because, no offense to your daughter, but how dare your kids turn around and tell you what you're gonna do, right? And I think that that's the sort of the feeling that triggers the whole comeback, for lack of a better word, is like, oh, no, 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 I'm driving this bus here. So that's one of those things that I see coming up around you. The other thing that I'm being shown is there's a couple of things here. First of all, it's like I'm seeing your husband like he's acting like a baby. Not that he is actively acting like a baby, but I feel like he needs to be babied, if that makes sense. And I also feel like that goes against everything in you to do that. But this is where series and the nurturing comes in to play here, because there's sort of an element where when the two of you were working side by side together, and then changed completely your location, and he stopped working and he retired and all this stuff happened, it's almost like this is supposed to be his time to be taken care of. I know, man. This is the time to be taken care of and babied by you. And he's not getting that. And I feel like in some ways he's sort of emotionally lashing out. And I kind of see that coming up like quite a bit this week. So when that seems to be happening, obviously getting frustrated is not going to help, although I understand why you would. But I feel like this is less about how you feel about it, and there's much more involved in him not getting what he needs, if that makes sense. And in some ways, this is growth for you. You have always been the hard-headed, business-driven woman, and that's awesome. And I'm not saying that you haven't been a good wife. I would never say that. I know that you have been. But I feel like he feels that this is his time for you to be that softer, more feminine, more maternal type of woman for him. Big adjustment, I know, difficult. Doesn't have to take over your whole life though. Give him what he wants. It may improve things, honestly, in terms of his health and his mental health as well. So that's what I have for you this week. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to Matalyn. Focuses on self still this week for Virgos. We still have Ceres influencing that this week, probably moving out of Virgo next week, depending on when she goes retrograde. I'm not really sure. I guess we'll find out next week. With focus on self, there's a couple of different things that come up. Obviously, most people would think that Virgos think about themselves all the time. I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm sure that there's an element of that, yes, but I don't agree that they think about themselves all the time. But I feel like this is really this week in terms of focus on self. This is about your future. This is about what you want that to look like. I kind of feel like there are some ideas. You have some ideas of maybe what you want that to look like. But I'm also seeing a lot of stinking thinking going on in there as well. Like, I would love to do this, but I can't commit that kind of time to school, or it's going to take me away from this, or it's going to, you have a lot of excuses as to why you can't do it also. It's not your fault. We're all like that. We all kind of do it. You have to be the one to manage that, if that makes sense. No one can manage that for you. No one can make this decision for you either. So if there is a decision that needs to be made, you can ask everybody and not get an answer. And that usually indicates that that's because it's not up to them to make this decision. It's up to you. The way I see it in life, honestly, you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to work for it and as long as you're willing to accept the consequences of your decision. And it sounds scary when you say accept the consequences, but consequences aren't always a bad thing either. You know, I mean, well, most of the time, consequence to hard work is making money, right? Or advancing in your career or something, you know, that is positive. Hard work, though, the consequence of that can also mean working yourself to death and injuring yourself and, you know, different things like that. So, yeah, it can really go either way. And we don't want to have a negative mindset, obviously, because that brings on negative things that don't need to happen. We already have a lot of negative things that are going to happen because that's just how life is. It's always going to give you a shit sandwich, so you could figure out how to turn that into something better than a shit sandwich, right? So I feel like there are certain things that have been happening lately that are really getting you focused on what is it that I want to do for the rest of my life, right? And it doesn't have to be this great big giant revelation or anything like that. It could be you know, maybe not even the rest of your life, maybe for the next 6 months. What do you want to do for the next 6 months? And also looking at it in terms of from an independent standpoint. Okay, again, not saying that, you know, there's a problem having a boyfriend or that you shouldn't plan these things with him. If you're planning on spending the rest of your life with him, obviously you should, but it's not about what he needs. This is about what you want. And so this is more of a working with him to understand these goals than it is getting his input on or having him make the decision on what you should do, if that makes sense. He's important in the process, but it is not his decision to make. And that's really the thing that you want to be aware of, to make sure that you don't put him in the position of making your decision for you. Okay. It seems like it would be a good idea. And then if decision doesn't work out, it puts you in the position to blame him for it, which is unfair. Okay. It was your decision to make in the first place. And a lot of people can't make a decision because they don't want to take the responsibility. And that is not grown up. I don't care how old they are. That is not grown up. A grown person takes responsibility and accountability for their actions, for their decisions, and for their lives. And anytime you're pointing the finger at somebody else, you're not taking responsibility for your own shit. So I'll get off my soapbox now on that. The other thing that I am being shown for you this week is kind of weird, actually. I don't know why. Okay, yeah, I think I do. So I'm being shown you wearing a shawl, which this time of year would not make any sense at all because it's probably warm. But it's your grandma saying to cover your shoulders because she's saying either you're doing work outside or you're doing something outside, and she's showing me burnt soldiers. Whoa, burnt shoulders. I don't know where the burnt soldiers came from. That's kind of weird. Burnt shoulders, cover them up, or don't forget your sunscreen. Okay, she's showing me some pretty burnt shoulders. That's something you want to avoid if you possibly can. So, that's what I have for you, darling. Moving on to Theresa, we don't have a whole lot going on in Libra this week, which is actually pretty cool. We do have Ceres moving into on the cusp, ready to jump into Libra next week. So we are feeling that Ceres influence a little bit there towards the end of the week as she gets closer and closer and closer to making her jump. And Ceres is all about nurturing. She's known as the Great Mother, so she has a very maternal, very nurturing influence and focus on self. that is all about how you are nurturing and taking care of yourself. Now, I do happen to know, because I've seen some pretty big things going on around you, okay, in your family. We'll just say I've seen a couple things on, Facebook and stuff like that. So, I don't know, but I know. And I am gonna go out on a limb and assume that you've been really roped into that a lot lately, because a lot of times when things do happen with your family, you don't just get roped into it, you dive right in the middle of it to try and smooth things out and sort of help things out, if that makes sense. This situation, I feel, is exhausting you. It's like the more you keep trying, the more volatile it gets. The more frustrating it gets, the more emotional it gets. I hear voices being raised. And with Libra's focus being on the past, I feel like this is a place that you've been before. And so there may be some triggers coming up around that as well. So two things. One, self-care is important. Not giving up your time for somebody else every time is really important. Okay, first of all. Second of all, in terms of making sure that you're not repeating patterns from the past, you really want to make sure that you're not repeating patterns from the past. It's not about what the other person does, okay? Because the other person, chances are it's going to go exactly the same way that it did before, okay? This is not about how they react. This is about how you handle their reaction, or how you handle your reaction. So for instance, in the past, you may have gotten freaked out and played into it and done everything this person wanted so that, you could make them feel better. And while that's beautiful, you may not have the kind of time to put into that you did before. So this time around, there's some boundaries on it, right? You can continue to do it, but it doesn't have to take up your entire existence, your entire life, because let's face it, you have a career and you have a lot of things that you need to do, right? And this person, doesn't matter who they are, they need to be understanding of that, because you are a grown woman with your own kids and your own life and your own responsibilities as well. So that's one thing that I see coming up around you. The other thing is, I'm not sure why it's coming through with a bouquet of roses, yeah, it is a bouquet of roses. I feel like there's something to celebrate coming up. I'm not sure what it is, but that's his offering for that celebration. And I'm not sure if this could have been something that was between the two of you, and not necessarily existing now, or it could be something that's existing now that he's sort of telling you that he's joining into the celebration with you, if that makes sense. So either way, the roses to me mean romance and love. They're red roses. So I would assume that it has something to do with that. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. Moving on to, actually, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm going to move on. So we'll be right back here. Okay, moving on to Regina. So good news is we don't really have any planets influencing Scorpio this week. Everything is on the other side of the zodiac doing its thing. So that's really kind of good. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the moon coming back in there to influence things. And, that always just causes a problem. So luckily, we don't have a whole lot of that. Focus is on the mind. And one of the things I said in the horoscopes for this week is Scorpios are in their heads a lot this week. And that can be a really good thing if your head is promoting ideas to project you forward, focused on positive changes in your life, or it's a really bad place to be. And for most of us, being in our heads is actually not a great place to be. It can be really flippin' scary in there in many cases. And when good things come up, it's very common for most people, and Scorpios definitely have this problem. They go to a negative place in their minds and they worry about what's going to happen. Is it going to be successful? Am I going to fall flat on my face and be embarrassed by everybody? Blah, 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 blah. Hell, we can project an asteroid falling from the sky that is going to destroy half the planet, and that's going to get in the way of us moving forward in our goals. Like, really, we can just go to this ridiculous place in our heads. And really, that's what this week is all about for you. It's about trying to avoid that very problem for a number of different reasons, really. The biggest reason being that you're just not productive that way. And I feel like recently you've really been becoming more and more aware of this habit that your mind has and this habit that your brain has. And it's really starting to frustrate you. Like, you're getting frustrated with your own brain. And that's good. I'm glad you're getting frustrated with your own brain, because now you're seeing a problem, and that means that now you have the power to change the problem. No, it's not easy. Nobody said that it was easy. I was not going to ever say, yeah, this is an easy thing. Okay, it's not easy. Okay, taking control of my own brain continues to take work every single day, because I constantly have to remind myself I'm not going into that destructive space. I want to remain in a positive and productive space. And that is a reminder that comes up several times a day, every single day, in order to keep me focused in the right place. And when I'm not very productive, you can tell that I'm not doing that, because yes, I do still make the choice to not do that and just fester in my own BS, for lack of a better way of saying it. So this week, I feel like these instances are going to be coming up a little bit more. And the reason they're coming up a little bit more often is to shed light on that and to give you the opportunity to change the way your brain is programmed in some way, or the way your brain has been programmed, whether it was by you or other people. It doesn't matter why it happened. What matters is what you're going to do with that information right now. That's all that matters. Anything that happened before, forget about it. It's in the past, right? The other thing that I feel is coming up around you this week is I do see a lot of ideas in that brainwave space, a lot of ideas coming up and a lot of things that you want to do. And it's like, I literally see you walking through the house doing this and looking at all the projects that you have, projects that you want to get done. And it seems like it's really overwhelming because there's so many of them. And when you're looking at so many of them, it's hard just to pick one and start and keep going. And then you worry about whether or not you can finish it once you start it. And, you know, again, we're going to that place again. We don't want to do that. Make it easy on yourself. Walk through the house, make a list of all the things that need to be done. Write it down on a pad of paper with a pen. Okay, we're going to do this the old-fashioned way here. Why? Because it's so satisfying when eventually you can check that off as being done, right? And if you have a list, it helps you organize which one is the most important. So the most important thing to get done, right down to the least important thing to get done. And you can either choose what gets done off that list depending on the money that you have in the moment, the importance of it getting done, et cetera, et cetera. It just sort of helps put you in the mindset of this is happening. We're moving in this direction and we're fixing this and problem and we're moving on from it. So it helps you to not feel quite as stuck in a situation, if that makes sense. And being a fixed sign, I think it is a fixed sign mentality for us, being a fixed sign also, for us to always feel like we're stuck where we are. I think that that wasn't even a mindset that was programmed, it's a mindset that we're born with. But it's also a challenge that we are born with to overcome, which a lot of our negative aspects of our zodiac signs and the modes and the elements are just that. They're challenges that we're born with that we are supposed to overcome. So don't be stuck anymore. Being stuck is miserable. I know. I've been stuck so many times every day. One day I'm stuck, the next day I'm not. It sometimes it's like a yo-yo like that. But that feeling is just miserable. And the only way you're going to get out of it is if put your big girl panties on and say, that's it, we're done, right? And I don't care if people don't like it. This is the new Regina. And here I am. And you know what? Be proud. Just be proud. It doesn't matter if they accept the new version of you. It doesn't matter if, certain people don't accept the new version of you. It's all about you, not what they think. It's about you and what you think. And that's really what's important. So that's what I have for you, Regina. Moving on to Theresa, no planets in Scorpio this week. Focus is on the mind. I opened up the horoscopes by saying Scorpios are in their heads this week. And I feel that plays out for you with a lot of worry. Which, I mean, is a shock. I know, but you being a woman and all and going through the things that you have been going through lately, but honestly, this feels like it's not just the regular amount of worry that you would normally go through. This seems to be like a lot. And there's quite a few layers to this worry, if that makes sense. Normally, you're not a worry yourself into, how do I want to say this? Normally, you're not a worry yourself into a panic situation, but I feel like you may be very close to that this week, if that makes sense. And you do want to make sure that you're managing that and you don't let that get too crazy. Also, you understand, as well as most people understand, that when you're in that space, it doesn't make you very productive. It doesn't help you actually get things done, or it slows down the process of getting things done. And I feel like the situation that you're worried about is going to require you to kind of be on your toes mentally, to be able to make decisions quickly and, without the unnecessary emotional thought process getting in the way of that, if that makes sense. Like, the decision that needs to be made, and that this is the best decision all the way around. So you just have to make the decision, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that this is not what I'm thinking it is, because I can think in a really scary place, but what I can say is that you're not making this decision alone. And I do see you being surrounded by others that in a supportive way as you're making this decision, if that makes sense. So, but I also see that there is the possibility that there are those who may not necessarily agree with the decision, but I still keep being told that this is your decision to make ultimately, no matter what. So basically, I think the bottom line here is the more you worry about whether or not you're making a good decision or not is sort of getting in the way of what you need to do. And also, I'm kind of going back and forth because part of me wants to say that this is a work thing that you're dealing with, and part of me wants to say that this is something that you're dealing with at home. let me put it this way. I do see work being supportive of this either way, that you have the support that you need. And you have all the time in the world to make this decision as well. I mean, that's not true, but you do have time. It's not like you have to make a snap decision at the last minute. Your gut intuition knows what needs to happen. So basically, the more time you spend thinking about it, the more confusing it gets, if that makes sense. I also want to say that this is not something that's easy. I kind of see this happening more towards the beginning, middle of the week. It's really important that you take some time to recover from this decision, if that makes sense. So you're going to need some self-care time. You're going to need some unplugged time. You're going to need some time to yourself, if that makes sense. I keep wanting to say to sort things out. Again, sorting things out is one thing. You want to make sure that you're aware you're not going into that emotional space where you just kind of float away down the river and get lost, right? And have to fight your way back to the surface, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you this week. And 10 hugs and 20 kisses, and you have my phone number. I'm just saying. Moving on to Jillian. No planets in Scorpio this week. And Scorpios are in their heads this week. Its focus is on the mind and how you think. And let me just say this. I can't go on and on and on telling everybody how proud I am of you. Oh my God. I did. Everybody I've talked to so far, and I haven't even talked to everybody yet, if you can believe that. I'm so dang proud of you. And yet at the same time, no, I don't expect you to be perfect. Nobody is, especially not me. One of the things that I have learned, though, that I will share with you is that success is very much based on how you think about it. And for Scorpios tend to think on an emotional level. And if it gets a little too emotional, it just looks like there is no possible way that you can be successful, or there is no possible way you're ever going to be out of this situation. There's no the more you think in that way, the more there is no possible way, period. So a lot of times our fears of success, most of the time we think it's fear of failure, but really a lot of the time it is fear of success. That is a big deal, because before you are successful, you don't know what that looks like. And that can be a really big responsibility. If on one hand, having tons and tons of money sounds like a ton of fun, right? You can just run around, spend money wherever you want, do whatever you want. Sounds awesome, right? But have you ever thought of the responsibility of having like a ton of money? I mean, you got to pay taxes on that. That's not something that I know how to do. Everybody is going to be my best friend. That's not something that I want, when they find out I have all this money. There's a lot of things that aren't great about it either. And when we're faced with something awesome like this, the brain automatically goes to all the disastrous things that could happen to prevent my happiness, because I'm just not meant to be happy. It's always been difficult for me. You can literally come up with a bazillion different bullshit things to say to yourself. And I feel like this is going to come up for you. It's coming up for a lot of Scorpios, I feel too, but it's coming up for you a lot more this week, because it's giving you an opportunity to identify that this is where your brain automatically goes. There's nothing wrong with you, okay? Everybody else does the same damn thing, including me. Every time I go to the negative, of the situation, even if that negative is, oh, that seems like a lot of work, right? I mean, really, okay. If you had to spend 6 months writing a novel that you knew was going to make you $1 million, and you went, oh, well, that's a lot of work. That is the dumbest thing that you could possibly do, right? So I get that life doesn't give us those certainties, okay? I mean, I wish maybe it would motivate me more to do what I need to do, okay? Because I am, by all counts, lazy by nature, right? So all of us fixed signs are, by the way, lazy by nature. We just don't move very quickly. So what's the point of getting up and moving at all, right? Perfectly happy right here. Just leave me here on my rock. Fine, right? That would be really dumb, honestly. And I get that we're not guaranteed the result. Okay, but everybody told George Lucas he was crazy when he decided he was going to do Star Wars. Everybody told him that nobody would be interested in it. Everybody told him that he wasn't going to make any money out of it. If he had listened to those people, or probably the voices in his head that were probably telling him the same thing, well, we wouldn't have Star Wars, which I would not be upset about, but he wouldn't have made the millions and millions and millions of dollars that he did with that one stupid idea. Okay. Literally, that one stupid idea made him millions of dollars. The point is, you want to look at all of these things that you're talking yourself out of doing as the next potential $1 million idea, the next potential thing that's going to set you on your course of success in whatever it is that you want to do. And every time the stinking thinking comes up, you got to tell that voice in your head, bitch, pick rocks, get out of here because you don't belong in here. We're having a meeting of positive reinforcement towards my goals, and you don't need to be here. You're not invited, period. Okay. So that's one thing that I have for you this week. The other thing that I have is sometimes negative situations happen for a reason. And I've seen it happen a million times. I don't have time to name every instance, but I've seen it happen a million times. Here's a really good example is Uncle Matt. You know Uncle Matt? And he got fired from his job that he had been at for 10 years over something completely asinine and stupid. And he thought his whole entire life was over. And then he decided, you know what, at 45 years old, I'm going to college to be a physical therapist. And, you know, it's a big deal to make that decision when you're 45 years old. Okay. It really is. It also proves that you are never too old to change the direction of your life, period. And he taught a bunch of people in his family that same thing, because then they all said, well, if Uncle Matt can do it, then I can do it. And so they went and they signed up for school and decided to change their lives too. And it's awesome, right? Now you could look at it, well, he can't do that because he's taking care of his mom because she's older. His parents are older now. And so that all kind of got in the way of it. But that doesn't matter. The point is that he did it. He got past all of his stinking thinking and stupid stuff and went and learned something and improved his life in some way. Whether he got his certification or not is neither here nor there, right? He did not let laziness get in the way, and he did not let his negative inner voice talk him out of it. And he's better for it today in some way, shape, or form. And it's really all that matters, right? So when it comes down to you and what it is that you're doing and what it is that you want to do, ideas are not bad ideas just because you come up with them, first of all. Second of all, you may come up with an idea that's a little bit kind of crazy and out of the box. And you know, your old Aunt Melissa comes up with a lot of crazy shit, right? Some of it's pretty good stuff. Okay. Yes, some of it doesn't make any sense, but some of it is pretty good stuff. And you never know. Sometimes you got to take a risk to see where you might actually run into something awesome that you weren't even looking for. So that's what I have for you, darling. Moving on to Sheri. Focus is on the home this week. No planets in Sagittarius, which is fine. I mean, you guys can, chaos things up without any help. That's cool. And actually, I don't really see a whole lot of chaos going on this week, really. Focus is on the home. I do see some spring cleaning, Sheri with her hair up, just going through the whole entire house, not just yours, but well, I kind of feel like you're starting in your parents' house, and that just sort of kind of moves into you going through some stuff in your own house as well. A little bit out with the old, but I want to say too that there's something, this sort of came up in the horoscopes, and I was really, really thinking of you when this was coming up. This is about a project, like putting something together or finishing a project that your mom started, and which, by the way, your mom loves this idea, because it's almost like when I was doing the horoscopes, I was visualizing you and seeing, but it was your mom, because this is more like what she would do, but I'm seeing you in her place, and she's there and really excited about it. And in a way, this is a way for you guys to do the project together, which is not that you've never done projects together, but I kind of feel like maybe she wanted you to do more than you did. So, that kind of, she can jump in and sort of help out with that, if that makes sense. But this is something creative, and like the cute little things that she would used to make for the garden and stuff like that. It's just like there's some sort of creative bug that just sparks in your brain, and you're like, oh, I could do this. And you just make it, and it's awesome. And I really feel like you're super excited about it. And, maybe everyone else doesn't seem quite as excited as they should be, but that does not matter, because this is about you. And it's a creative outlet for your energy in a way. And to break up the monotony of just having to take care of, the household. I mean, you love to do that, but it does just get so boring doing the same thing over and over again, being a Sagittarius and all. It's the boredom it's the I could not think of the term when I was trying to do the horoscopes, but it's something along the lines of busy hands keep the devil away, or something weird like that. But it's not about being busy, it's about the type of busy. Monotonous cleaning and doing the same bullshit every single day, that's not busy. That's where your brain wants to go to, I want to do something extremely crazy here and shake everything up. So I feel this sort of creative outlet is going to help with that. I'm also seeing you writing in your journal again, Sheri. I'm also seeing you writing in your journals again. You have like 100 of them from before, but I see you picking that up again. I see stories. I see all kinds of stuff coming out on this paper. I mean, like, whoa, okay. Some of this can be like, I'm doing an emotional release here, which is great, but I see creative, I see stories, I see you creating a story, and there's ideas. Those ideas have been swimming around in there. It's time to put that on paper, okay? It doesn't need a structure. You don't have to worry about the spelling. You don't have to just write down what the idea is. Just start there. Okay. And then we can take the steps to build it from there, if that makes sense. One of the things that I would love to see, hey, it's 4:20, like right now. One of the things that I would love to see from you this year is I want to see Sheri own her shit. Okay. And I'm not talking about like owning your bullshit. Okay. I'm talking about you owning how fucking awesome you are and remembering that and actually stepping up in front of people and going, that's right. I'm Sheri. Okay. And this is what I can do. And I know you all didn't notice it before, but I wanted to make sure that you noticed it now. Okay. And I just, there's been so many years of you dimming your own light and of you holding yourself back. And that's what I want to see this year. So anyways, I don't want to overwhelm you or anything, but it's time. Don't but me, okay? It is time. And we're going to leave it at that. That's what I have for you this week. My throat hurts now. And I'm moving on to Peg. Hi, Peg. There are no planets in Sagittarius this week. Focus is on the home. Curiously, I see you moving again. And, every time in the past, when I picked up you moving, I thought, there's no way, man. Because I mean, this woman must move all the time. And then, like, you've been moving. So, I mean, literally, you must move all the time. That's got to be exhausting, I'm sure. But I do see a move, and I don't think it was a planned one either. It's almost like either like it's a business thing where your husband has to move, from one place to another, or it's you have to be nearer to family or something like that. It's something that literally comes up like out of nowhere. This is not something that you had planned for. It's something that presents itself almost right away, if that makes sense. Really weird as I'm saying this, I am literally picking up on like silence in my environment. Now, my environment's pretty loud normally. You can't really tell. There's a lot of traffic because of where I'm at. My refrigerator is always going. There's a guy across the way that's always making noise. There was just kids literally like in the office next door running around, and then everything went silent. Really weird. I'm bringing this up because I feel like this is what your brain really needs right now. I feel like I'm hearing all of these thoughts going on. There's some screaming going on somewhere. Maybe there's some anger or something that's in there. It's like you haven't shut down your brain and just silence in too long, and you got to do that. I'm not saying you don't meditate. I'm saying there hasn't been a really good, nice long half hour, 45-minute long meditation, Peg, and that needs to happen for your own sanity more than anything, but also because you need to relax. I just feel that it's really important that you are able to literally just relax everything in your body, because I am feeling a lot of tenseness recently. Also, if you're all of a sudden having to move at the last minute, that is going to cause more tension, but now that's tension on top of tension. So we need to release some of that tension for sure. The word I'm in, there's a thing on my computer, right? It's just an ad. It's literally been there for hours. The word hustle is jumping out at me. It's been there for hours. I haven't even looked at it. And that I'm drawn to that word hustle for you as well. And the S almost looks like a snake in some weird way, like a fat cartoon snake. Um, Okay, and the snake goes up so that's what do they call it? A cauticus or something like that. This has to do with health. Um, okay. If there's something that you need to go look at, I'm not getting hustle as in you need to hurry your butt, but don't put it off or don't put it on the back burner. Okay. It needs to be addressed, and you need to get the test done, for you, even if it's for your own peace of mind. Okay. That's why you need to hustle. It's just one thing that you can take off of your list of things to worry about, because we women, we just go ahead and gather all the stuffs to worry about. I'm also seeing Reiki coming up around you as well. I'm not sure if that's something that you've been doing lately, or if that's something you've been thinking about maybe needing to do. And if it is something that you're thinking about maybe needing to do, there's your confirmation that you might want to make an appointment for that also. I am seeing some issues around the stomach area, abdomen, upper abdomen area. Not like overwhelming issues, just something that's kind of nagging a little bit that you need to get addressed. It could be physical, it could be emotional, because of where it is. So, by going into the doctor, obviously, and getting that looked at, you get to rule out or rule in the physical pretty quick. But the emotional, I think, is really what's playing a big part in this. Because I am seeing a lot of stress around you lately, or just finding out that there is going to be a lot more stress pretty soon, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you this week, Peg. Moving on to Mama Sheri, focus is on the home this week. There's no planets in Sagittarius. When I was doing the horoscopes, talking about rearranging things and throwing things out, of course I was visualizing you running around your house and making sure things are where they're supposed to be and everything is perfect, and looking at things and deciding this doesn't go there anymore and moving it, or just saying, you know what, I don't really want to hang on to this anymore and releasing it. Almost like a spring cleaning, although it is almost summertime, and it's probably not your first one either. I'm sure that it's probably like the fourth or fifth one since you moved there. I don't know. Honestly, I see this happening for two reasons. One, when you get frustrated, this is so how you release the frustrated energy, is by cleaning and organizing and and such. Not to say that you are frustrated, but well, let me put it this way. I see you in this, it's like a teeter-totter. You want to do something, not sure if you want to do it. You want to do it, you're not sure if you want to do it. You want to do it, you're not sure if you want to do it. And you're causing your own frustration in this particular instance setup type thing. So by going and being busy, you're sort of working through that frustration. And yet at the same time, in your mind, you're working through whether or not you should branch out or accept these opportunities, et cetera, what have you, right? First of all, stinking thinking, big problem. Make sure it's not involved in the decision. You know what I'm talking about. And second of all, I have to say that stinking thinking problem didn't used to be as big of a problem as it is now. And there are reasons for that, obviously, but those reasons no longer apply. Let them go. Also, I don't want to say it this way, but I don't really see any other way to do it. My dad says it's unfair to you to allow him to stop your progression and how wonderful you are at what you do. It's unfair to him to use him as the excuse as to why you choose to hold back how wonderful you are at what you do. And other people that try to infiltrate that and control it, it's unfair of them to do that. It's also unfair for you to use them as an excuse as well. And maybe if you look at it in that way, it will change the way you're looking at it, if that makes sense. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm being shown today is I see, oh God, you want to be near the water so bad. I keep seeing this lake around you. When I came out to visit, I was like, we got to go find this lake, and we never did. I think I got lazy that day or something. I didn't want to move. We never did find this lake, but I keep seeing this lake around you, and I am super drawn to it. And I don't know if I'm drawn to it for you or I'm drawn to it for me, but obviously you're the one that's there and you're the one that needs the water so bad. I'm seriously drawn to it for you. In the meantime, though, the water is important, and I am seeing this little fountain. Not something that's overly expensive, something that is going to give you the trickle sound of the water. There's something about this water that you're just missing. Like even if it's just the sound of the water running in some way, this is something that you can get that will at least help. It's not the solution, but it's something that it's like almost when you hear it, this is when you start grounding. This is when you start meditating. This is when you come back to that space that Sheri needs to be in to be awesome. That makes sense at all. And that's what I have for you this week. And finally, I am moving on to Alyssa. We have some pretty interesting things taking place here in Pisces. We're going to start with Saturn. Saturn, of course, is still in Pisces. And Saturn is going retrograde on Saturday. So when Saturn is all about responsibility. And when Saturn goes retrograde, a couple of things happen. One, you start to identify where you may be taking on responsibilities that do not belong to you. Either somebody else is handing you the responsibility that actually belongs to them, or you're just taking it from them so that they don't have to deal with it. And that's fine. Every now and then, temporarily, make sure you're not doing it in the long term, if that makes sense, or you're not doing it in inappropriate ways. The other thing is that sometimes it also shows where we are not necessarily being as responsible to ourselves as we could be. And with Saturn focused on your day-to-day schedule, that has everything to do with your responsibility to the time you put towards your success. So, for example, when I first started in business, and when you work from home, it's not very motivating. You don't have somebody, looking over your shoulder, making sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So it's very easy to talk yourself out of it and go, I'll just do it tomorrow, right? Well, how many I'll just do it tomorrow does it take for 10 years to go by and you still haven't done anything yet? So in many ways, while I say that timing is everything, in many cases, also the amount of I'll do it tomorrow's really adds up in time. And because it adds up in time, it also shows me being in a space where I could be further if I chose to be more motivated. So one of the things that I've had to do is to literally put every little thing down on my schedule. I'm spending an hour on my website today. I'm spending an hour on my finances today. I have these appointments, these clients that I have to do. I'm taking a break from mediumship and doing Grubhub from this time to this time on this day. If it says that that's what I'm doing on my schedule, then that's what I'm doing. As soon as there's a blank spot, it creates this loophole where I'm like, well, I should be doing this responsible thing, but I'm really just gonna, get high and play a game instead, right? Because that's more in tune with what I want to do. Putting some of that time into your schedule is not a bad idea either. I still continue to give myself plenty of time for that and get things done, right? So I'm not denying myself being lazy. Being lazy is a reward at that point. So hopefully that makes sense. Neptune also continues to be in Pisces and is not going retrograde this week, but will be going retrograde here in the next couple of weeks. It is going retrograde this month, so no chance of it leaving Pisces this year, which is fine. It is perfect where it is anyways. Neptune's focus is on relationships. Now, both planets wind up in a square with the sun, Mercury, and the moon by the end of the week. And all of these planets are focused on your long-term career goals. So interestingly enough, that we start off talking about how you can waste time in business. I didn't even plan it like that. Okay. It just happened, right? That has a lot to do with it. Obviously, your motivation and your ability to not just motivate yourself, but self-discipline is really important in that as well. Also, your intuition plays a big part in it, especially when you're intuitively gathering the relationships that you need to be successful. So what that looks like to me is being a woman business owner and not really having a huge clientele in the Valley where I was at the time starting off my business. I joined a women's group where, a group of professional women. And I learned a lot about how to run my business from this group. And I learned a lot about balancing my time and when I should be working. Like, for example, I'd get up every morning, I go straight to my email, haven't even had a drink of coffee yet, and already I'm dealing with the bullshit of the day. And I just woke up, right? Whereas if I was going to work, I wouldn't be looking at that until 8:30, 9 o'clock when I've already had my coffee and I'm awake and I'm ready to deal with that crap. It was just not something that occurred to me as something that was important. And when it was brought to my attention in this group, I never did it again. And my life has been better for it. It doesn't take much, right, to improve things. So that sort of broadens out the relationships that you need in order to be successful, if that makes sense. I'm also kind of seeing this a little bit as you sort of broadening the relationships in terms of your clientele with your readings. If you're thinking about doing that. Finally, the last thing that I have for you is that we continue to have this wonderful sextile between Pluto and Neptune. Pluto and Neptune have been in and out of this sextile for a long time now. And with Neptune being in Pisces all this time, of course, you felt it. It really is kind of a magical placement, even with Pluto being retrograde and Neptune about to be retrograde. Pluto's focus is on those you love. Neptune's focus is on your relationships. It sort of creates this space for you to really spend some quality time with people you love, not necessarily time where you have to work things out or you have to actually do something or, it's work. This isn't work. This is, Mom, let's go just do mother-daughter time and have some shopping and some lunch and just have fun, And instead of putting in the work to the relationship, you enjoy the relationship. So that's what I have for you, darling. And that is what I have for everybody. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me with these readings. I am Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. You guys are awesome. And I will see you next week. Make it a great week, everybody.